Good afternoon, folks. Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilia here with your tropical update for June 11th of 2019. Marching our way through the beginning of hurricane season. Of course, tropical update, as always, brought to you by the good folks at Pine Belt Gutters. Big thanks to them for helping us out with these. We talked about the forecast yesterday. Colorado State 13.5 and 2. The NOAA forecasts, they do a less precise but probably more accurate forecast of 9 to 15, 4 to 8, and 2 to 4. Again, the difference between precision and accuracy: precision, a precise number; accuracy, a more accurate. I don't know how to better explain that. I think between 9 and 15 is probably a pretty safe bet for this year. Thus probably more accurate, because if you say 13 and you get to 14, not very accurate. Anyway, average is 12, 6, and 3. It goes down as between the two of them about an average season for the most part, maybe a little below average on the top end with the hurricanes and the major hurricanes. So far, we've already had Andrea. We're waiting on Barry to show up, and we hope we never see him. After that is Chantal, Dorian, Aaron. Of course, if we make it through the list, about average would be stopping somewhere around Jerry and Karen. Of course, the peak of hurricane season quite a ways away. We're all the way here at the beginning. Of course, so we've been cutting these videos since late May when Andrea showed up, but we're marching our way through June. Our first little peak, I guess you could say, happens right about now, give or take, between now and about the next week, because generally we have little fronts that sneak off of the Gulf Coast into the Gulf of Mexico. We're just off the East Coast, and stuff kind of gets spun up off that before the ridge starts to take over, and we kind of dip back down before the real peak shows up as we march our way through summer. I'll give you guys kind of a visualization of this. So the cold front that moved through, let's say yesterday, for example, moved through the area, that gave a lot of the southeast a beautiful day today. Low humidity, sunshine, a couple of high clouds, that's it. Well, the tail end of that front kind of sneaks into the Gulf of Mexico, and sometimes you can get stuff that kind of cuts off the back end of it, and that's why there's this little bullseye just in kind of the elbow of Florida. And we look other places too, all the areas in yellow into the Gulf of Mexico, the northern and northwest Caribbean, just off the East Coast. But the little bullseye that you see here is because of the fronts that sneak just off the coast. Now, once we get into July, then we start looking a little further out. We stop getting the fronts through, so we lose the little bullseye closer to home. You can kind of see where that front is. It's kind of hung up across parts of Florida right now, passed through right there, that little streak of cloud cover. But for the most part, the Gulf is quiet right now. We've got a ridge of high pressure out there, and we've got a couple of thunderstorms, looks like, off the coast to Houston. But outside of that, nice and calm. You can see the front a little bit easier here. It passes on through on the water vapor and kind of squashes its way through Florida. Last night at 10, I said, hey, we got a little curlicue out here we're going to have to keep an eye on as the front passes to see what happens to it. Well, it got squashed down into the central Gulf and kind of ripped apart as that front passed through. There's so much dry air out there, we weren't really truly concerned, but it was something that we wanted to kind of keep tabs on, not lose sight of stuff that's spinning around in the Gulf of Mexico, that's for sure. But on the water vapor, outside of that, we got a couple of high clouds into the southeast today. Things looking pretty good. A wider view of the open Atlantic. Of course, it is a little too early in the year to be looking out into the open Atlantic because we still have a couple of different things happening to preclude development out here. Number one, we still have a fair amount of shear. You can see stuff moving from west to east. Well, that's bad news for any hurricane that wants to form because they move from east to west, and if it interacts with a west to east wind aloft, that's just going to rip it apart. The other problem we run into out here right now is the fact that the water's just not warm enough. Oh, sure, we get showers, thunderstorms, and some deep convection to come off the coast of Africa, but it doesn't usually get too far because the water temperatures out here aren't quite warm enough. Yeah, we've got to wait as we march through the summer for things to bump up from the upper 70s and low 80s to the low to mid 80s, and at times once you get into the Caribbean, you're talking about 86, 87, 88. And 89 degree water, which is, that's not even bath water anymore. That's hot water. So let's take a look at the forecast we head through the next couple of days. The 700 millibar moisture 850 vorticity map. It looks like we've got maybe a little vorticity happening into the Gulf of Mexico. That's actually not associated with that little curlicue or the front. But we've got a lot of this grayed out area that you see over here. This is all just dry air in the mid-levels. And anytime you get dry in the mid-levels, you ain't having any showers, thunderstorms, or any kind of deep convection, which means no tropical systems. That drifts across parts of the Caribbean. We've got more dry air settling in across the Gulf Coast and into the Gulf of Mexico. This is all the way through Sunday. We still have dry air snaked across most of the open Atlantic and into the Gulf of Mexico. Maybe a little curlicue happening toward the coast of Mexico. That's pretty normal this time of the year. And then I think as we head toward kind of the end of June, starting around the 17th, 18th, and 19th, and I think probably drifting through about the 25th and 26th, we just get a real big push of some dry air all the way across the Atlantic and into the Gulf of Mexico. And we're going to end up with a ridge of high pressure that parks over here too. And so we may not get much mixing out of that dry air either, or any injection of more moisture, until something changes maybe a little bit after that kind of 24th, 25th, 26th time frame. That means there's probably not going to be much happening out in the tropics, we hope. Things change, we hope, as we head through about the next 2 weeks, which is fantastic news for anybody that has any plans. Either you want to go fishing out into the Gulf of Mexico, and a lot of folks have cruises this time of the year as well, or if you're just hanging out around the southeast, the Gulf Coast, and you say, I just don't want to deal with a tropical system right now. So there's your tropical update for June 11th of 2019, brought to you by the good folks at Pine Belt Gutters.